you are thinking about getting a French lap as a pet, and you're maybe a little bit concerned about budget or the ongoing cost or startup cost or any of the above, or maybe you're the parent and your child is wanting to get a pet, let's go over that today. Ava, you willing to be my model for this movie? Can you face this way, please? No, let's not dig at the carpet. Cost of the animal itself. You can expect to pay, at minimum, you're talking about $100. And that one is just somebody trying to, I don't want to say get rid of them, but they're just trying to unload them quickly. But you can go, I've seen them upwards of almost 300. I've paid almost $275 for some. That's about the max that I would do. Personally, I charge $150 for either gender, so it doesn't really make a difference, or I don't bother with going up or down with the colors at all. So the one thing that I want to make very clear though, high price does not mean high or good conformation and quality. So you want them to have good, overarching body type, and you don't want to see any genetic DQs is what a verbiage that we use if we show. Disqualifications that they could pass on to their offspring. Occasionally we'll get one that maybe got bit. Moms get a little over exuberant cleaning them. So sometimes they can get an ear nipped or something like that. That's just an accident that happened. If you're okay with that happening, don't discount that. However, you can know, even if you don't know conformation very well, you can tell when you're looking at an animal, just something isn't right. It doesn't seem well put together, that sort of thing. So even if you aren't showing, it's still worth getting one that's well put together. The breeder has removed ones from the herd that just are not up to par. So just take that into consideration. High price does not always mean good conformation. Try your best to at least learn a little bit about it. So let's talk about hutches and housing and what's necessary and what maybe is the media trying to push certain agendas. Okay, so for doe and litter ones, here's one back here. These are 40 inches long by 30 deep, and so that is still above standard as far as like from the ARBA, like the Rabbit Breed Association, like what they recommend for their size. So definitely don't feel like they need a hutch that is as big as your living room or something like that. Just don't, we're gonna leave that alone, but just don't feel obligated to do that. So I'm gonna stand over here to see if you can see. They are lean-to style shelters, basically, with two of them, 2 cages per one hanging inside. And then, so all those cages are removable. That was the design that I, started years and years ago. It's been almost a decade probably, since we started building those and filling them out. You can also get hutches like this. I started with stuff like this and modified it and repaired a lot. Some of it was kind of scary. This one's getting on the rough side, but this one is only for when I have juniors that are either taking a longer time to go to their new home, or I want to grow them out to see how they're gonna fill out, that sort of thing. So this is my buffer hutch. This one is one long one, and then these are 2 smaller ones. So those work fine until they're about 10 weeks old. And then we've got a new situation, and it's gonna get a little bit dark because the barn just doesn't have individual lighting inside the stalls. So I'm gonna turn the camera around and I'll show you the new design that I've been doing. So this is as good as I can get lighting wise, so I apologize, but this is the new design that we started doing when we moved here. And basically it's just like you see at fairs, where we built the frame and I bought the bottom wire, not this not this type of stuff. The bottom, that's the stronger wire from Pointer Hill, and I just called him and said, kind of explained what I was doing and asked for individual sheets, the width and length that I wanted. It's normal for it to come in 30 inches wide, and then I got it for as long as I needed it. So this is the single one, and this is a doe and litter size cage. Then I do buy this 2x1 inch 16 gauge, I believe is what it is, from Royal King, and then just frame them up and build them myself. Are they perfect? No, but doing both of these together, the amount of wire I used cost probably $100, maybe $80 to $100, but buying just one of them pre-made was over $120. So I still saved quite a bit of money just by doing this myself. And it's worked out pretty well. Hi, little guys. These are 3-week-olds that are just starting to get moving around. And so, yeah, so this has really been working out. I would say altogether, both of them, I'm probably looking at $120 for one frame here. Or not frame, but, the whole situation here. So the housing situation can be literally as expensive or as affordable as you want it to be. If you're trying to go budget and you want one of the type of hutches that I showed you that are my buffer cages, you're still going to pay about $100 probably. The trouble you're going to run into with this breed especially is finding one, even if you look on Amazon, and I've had to help a few people through DMs and things try to find one that's wide enough. What you run into is, for some reason, like, they're 12 or 19 inches like wide, and they're about a foot wide when they're just sitting like that. So they can't even get in there and turn around. So my entire career at raising them, we've always had to build or adapt or do something. She's getting a little annoyed. I might have to go put her away. But you're gonna spend at minimum $100 for something, even if they're gonna stay outside. If they're going to stay inside, you could get some kind of like housing where there's just a tray underneath and it catches everything. Whatever you do, do not get a cage of any kind that allows them to, you want the waste to fall through into a tray, or like mine where it falls through to the ground, even if it's in the barn. Just because it's so much healthier for them. They're not staying up close to their ammonia, which is their P is very high in ammonia. And, just things like that you do not want them to be in it at all. Please, please, please do not get a litter box. Those are the dumbest things that the pet market has come up with in order just to sell you something else to make more money. Yes, they naturally go in one spot, but if you've already given them a cage where the waste falls through, they don't need it. They're not cats. So they are going to be so much healthier if you just let the waste fall through, and just let the tray catch it. From Amazon and all of that, they're like $180 plus if you're trying to go pretty. But if you're handy with construction, that's probably going to be your best route to be able to get a wire that's strong enough. The reason I went to ordering that special wire for the flooring is because their weight was causing the wire that you can get at Royal King or Tractor Supply to separate. And so every other year, I was replacing the floors, and that was just a huge expense. But on top of that, before even the year and a half, there was already a good-sized hole in the flooring. And so having wire is just dangerous for them to end up potentially with abscesses and things like that. So anywhere from $100 to maybe even $300 for housing. Then the other thing you need to consider or think about is, which this is just a startup costing, cage cups, which you can order from Pointer Hill as well, and they're not motivating me to sell for them at all. But these are cage cups that go. There should be a third one here, but somebody broke it, obviously. And they slide down on the wire and slide over. So as you can see right there, there's a latch on there, and that's why I like these. They need something to keep them from throwing it. Even these can get unlatched and thrown. And so one French lop will eat about one of these a day, which is about a cup and change. J feeders are also another option and more readily available at Tractor Supply, Royal King, whatever. The thing of it is that these are meant to go on the outside of a cage and have a hole for these cut out. So you can dump it in here and not have to even get in the cage to get it. I have always taken, these are normally bent up and over this way. I bend them backwards, but I only use these for dough and litters. Mainly because it's very difficult, especially like you. They love to just yank it off and throw it around. They don't like to leave it alone. So you either have to bend these really tight around the wire or something along those lines, but it gets you more feed, but it's narrow enough that it keeps the babies from sitting up in here and peeing and going on the feed. So that's kind of why I keep some of those on hand to help with that. So that's also something to consider. But the cage cups are about $2 a piece. The J feeders are about $7-ish. So once you get those, you may have to replace them, every 2 or 3 years if they're not latching anymore. But if your rabbit's not throwing it around, doesn't matter. You could also consider the heavy Crocs that some like Tractor Supply has and those sorts of things. The other thing you need to consider is if you have a tray that you're going to have to change often and it doesn't fall to the ground, you can get a straw like that for about $7 at your local feed store that maybe is not, you might get it a little cheaper from farmers themselves, maybe closer to $5. But the pine bale of shavings would be my first choice. If you're filling a tray to keep it, you need something to absorb the waste. The other thing you can also do is wood pellets that is sold for horse stalls. Those are great. They absorb the waste and kind of like swell and almost work like a cat litter situation. But again, those, you do not want the rabbit to get access to them. You want them to be able to stay out of it. Because if they bite that, it's going to swell in their gut. They're going to basically die. I battle so hard trying to get people to understand. Keep them off their waste in their litter and their bedding, no matter what, hands down, or you're going to kill them. I'm about ready to step on some more toes, which tends to be the way that I roll around here. Your rabbit only needs pellets, a commercial type feed that comes in about a 50-pound bag. You could do Mana Pro. You could do something like, there's a Blue Seal brand. Our local area has never carried it. If you're able to find that, that's fine. The main goal is to get 16 to 18% protein and over 20% fiber. The reason people push hay is in their mind, that is where the rabbit's getting fiber. No. Yeah, the pellet is a large amount of grass hay combined. The fiber is what keeps your rabbit's gut going. It's not the hay. Okay? So I'm not going to, for sake of ranting on that, a commercial type pellet is all your rabbit needs. I quit feeding hay over a decade ago, never had any issues, never lost a rabbit to bloat. I personally think French Labs have a little bit more sensitive of a digestive system. And so many years ago, I started hearing people saying, I almost lost a whole herd to bloat, blah, blah, blah. The main denominator between them was they fed a large amount of hay daily to their animals. So I figured, I ain't got nothing to lose. So I quit, never had an issue after that. So, when you are looking at feed bags, sometimes they will have something like this on the bag itself or a tag that you can look at. I've been feeding Highlands for 2 years now probably, and I love the results. Don't feel like you have to get it. A lot of times it's just quality of the ingredients that the rabbits agree with. It's don't feel like you have to stick with it, but this works great for me. But on the top, it will have a list of the amount and minimum and max amount of the crude protein, the fiber, things like that. That's the main thing that you need to worry about. Don't worry about all the extra stuff. But what you'll notice is that the pet type, where it only comes in a 5 to 10 pound bag, is often 12% protein or less. But these, getting it this size will save you a whole lot more money than feeding your rabbit on that small bag. The 50-pound bag is usually between 18 and 20 bucks. A French Lab will go through one of those every 10 weeks or so. So keep it dry. Don't leave it, in somewhere like This barn, the door does stay closed, so but it still is a little bit susceptible to the humidity of the air, but I run through fast enough that it's not a big deal. I run through about 1 bag a week, and probably will escalate here in the next year or so, because we're working on expanding now that we have the space for it. But typically when I have 10 to 12 keepers or breeder rabbits, I go through about a bag a week. It escalates a little bit more when we have litters and then comes back down when they go to their new homes. But if you have one, again, like I said, you can expect to do that once every 10 weeks or so. So if you're looking at $20 5 times a year, then you're looking at about $100 a year, which is really not that bad. If you want to do treats or hay, I don't recommend the hay part. Keep it so sporadic and so minimal that the rabbit cannot peg when you're going to give it to them. The pellets should, cost you about $100 a year, roughly. So as far as vet bills and things like that, you need to decide what you're willing to spend, what you feel comfortable with. Don't feel required. I'm just gonna leave it at that. But if the vaccine thing's not necessary, have a certain amount set aside, like almost an emergency fund for your rabbit if you feel that it's necessary. I've had people range all the way from, I think they are overly concerned, and they'll take the rabbit to the vet for hair falling off when rabbits molt, things like that. So just decide what is your budgeted amount, what you're willing to spend, whether it be per year or whatever, and learn what you can treat on your own. There's so much that you can do, or just so much that you can figure out on your own and use naturally. I think people are overly concerned and maybe just don't think that they can reasonably deduct what's going on. So, obviously I am not a vet. I do not claim to be. But everything that I have figured out is just through multiple, decades of experience and treating what I can myself. So there is a really, really good book that explains what herbs do. They don't do so much as far as the treatment, but I will link to it in the description, and you can get a copy of it. And it's written by 2 veterinarians, so the verbiage is very high level. So you just got to be patient with it and kind of just slowly read through things. The one thing that I would say before you dive into maybe doing things yourself, or if you start kind of going the natural way, choose 3 to 5 herbs that they solve all your problems that you could potentially run into. Maybe go with an anti-inflammatory, an antibiotic, and maybe like a pesticide type thing that will help prevent bugs and things. So let's run back through it real quick. Housing, $100 to $300, depending on how much you want to spend or how much you're able to build yourself. I do think for this breed, if you're able to construct something yourself, you're going to have the best luck that way. For the animal itself, you're still talking about that same range, about $100 to $300. For ongoing feed, you're talking about $20 every 10 weeks or roughly $100 a year to feed 1 French lap. And that is just if you stick to pellets only. Bedding, if you're doing a tray type and you do it once a week, a bedding of some form is going to be about $5 to $7 a month. And then if you're going to J feeders, that sort of thing, for feeders, I don't do bottles. I use a very large rubber bowl, and I'll link to those. They're anywhere from $5 to $10. At least when I got them. So it depends. They've been really difficult to find as of late, but I use a large 1 to 2 liter bowl for them. The bottles don't hold enough water. So you're talking about $20 initially to get some kind of feeding situation. So it's really not, the ongoing isn't the issue. It's, it's going to be kind of pricey to start up, especially since they're larger. So the housing situation is going to be your most difficult thing. So if you have any questions about costs of things, I will have it listed out in the description. If you are looking for a French lap, I raise them typically, we are located here in Southwest Ohio, so I raise them from starting in March, we'll have our first litter, and then we'll go late to September, October. It's too cold to have them on the the cold months on the outside of that. So we stop for the dead of winter. We do have a waiting list where you can pay 50% down, and the remaining 50% is due at pickup. So we do our best for different colors and things like that. If you're able to get a rabbit within the current group of litters that we have at the time, I will show you the colors we have, or if we have the color that you wanted, I'll show you that one. But it's not this color or nothing. So I do try to get the color that you prefer, but I still show you what is here, or something that's close. So don't feel like, oh, I don't want to like say just this color, and then not get anything for a year or better. Because that's the thing is like, just because two parents are bred together that are one color, like Ava that was there, just because she's a cream doesn't mean she will have a cream baby. So we'll do our best to get you the color that you want. If you want to wait and be bumped later, that's also an option. If you're like, I don't really want any of the colors here, you can wait till the next time around without losing your spot. So if you would like to get on the waiting list, the description has the link for that, as well as the page where you can learn all about how the process works and any other information you might want to know. And if you want to get in contact through email, that is down in the description as well.